life in general, like just everything in general got so much easier. I was just living life on hard mode. Everything was so much harder. I was making everything so much harder for myself. Even when I was getting my bachelor's degree, I would always, come home and have a bottle of wine and say, I'm going to stay up and do my homework. And of course, I didn't ever stay up to do my homework. And I would have to end up waking up at 5 a.m. to try to get my homework done before class. And now in grad school, I get my homework done. I'm responding back in discussions. I'm reading everything that I need to read beforehand. My mind is just, I can't believe how much clearer my mind is.
Hey y'all, what's going on? Welcome back to the Stacking Days podcast, where we highlight underrepresented journeys of sobriety from within the BIPOC community. I'm your host, Ray Donovan, and I'm certainly looking forward to our conversation today. We have Stephanie joining us to share her story of struggles and triumphs over alcohol. And, for anyone who's listened to any of this show, and past episodes, you'll know that I applaud anyone who kind of faces their own vulnerability, because I know firsthand how challenging that can be. So I want to first and foremost commend Stephanie for reaching out to Stacking Days to proactively share her story. I was very, very happy to see her note hit the inbox. So I feel like we have a lot of similarities in that Stephanie's also a parent. She's had to navigate her personal and professional endeavors while also addressing the role and hold that alcohol has played in her life. So with that, let's get right into it. Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's go back to the beginning here and start this conversation the way I like to start a lot of these conversations, in that how did your relationship with alcohol begin? Let's get into the roots of it all, and then we'll just have an organic conversation all the way through.
Sounds good. I started drinking. Well, I had like my first alcohol experience when I was maybe like 16 or 17. I drank for the first time with my sister and her friend. And it was a terrible experience. I did not have a good time, so I don't know why I ever continued to drink, but I got very hungover, but then I didn't drink after that. I didn't really start drinking socially or continuously until I got like after I was 21, way after I was 21. And it didn't really, alcohol was kind of always in the background. I'm from a small town in Connecticut, so there isn't much to do out there. So everyone usually is you're always drinking before you're 21 for sure. There's always somebody that can get you alcohol, or someone's parents that you can steal alcohol from. So, there was always a way to get it, but it didn't really become an issue until I was 30, until after I had my son. That's when alcohol really became a problem for me.
So, I mean, that seems like a lot of folks that I talk to, and you probably have heard this as well. I mean, we start drinking at a very young age. Seems like it didn't become even something that you dabbled in until later in life.
Right.
What was kind of the impetus for that post, you having your son? What kind of opened the door for you to say, like, okay, I'm going to start drinking more. It's now becoming part of my go-to.
Well, I totally fell into the mom wine culture. I welcomed it with open arms. That was always everyone's suggestion as well. When you become a first-time mom and you're stressed out or whatever, people are always like, have a glass of wine, relax with a glass of wine. Whenever you get together with other moms, you're usually getting together and you're having wine or you're having drinks. Even if you're trying to do something else, if you're supposed to be, a book club, it always ends up turning into just you drinking wine, or going out to brunch with other moms. It always ends up being a ton of mimosas. So it was just the stress of being a parent and not really knowing how to handle that stress in any other way. So I just drank. That was just always if I was happy, you drank. If you got sad, then you drank. If you were upset, then you drank. That was just always my go-to, my way to escape.
Yeah. I mean, I can't empathize with that because I'm a father. So daddy wine culture doesn't necessarily apply, but I do remember early on in having, my first child, decompression at the end of the day, is
Right.
important for,
Mhm.
for a stressing parent. And I mean, had already been drinking at that point, but I think what being a parent did is like it brought me indoors, like as opposed to like going out to the
Right.
bars. I
Mhm.
was probably at home with my bottle of wine more so
Mhm.
than at the bar with my,
For sure.
beer and whiskey. But certainly didn't help at all.
Right.
So so from that standpoint, I can feel where you're coming from. At what point did you start to get to a place where it started to become more than just kind of cultural and more so, okay, this has become habitual now and potentially even problematic?
I noticed it at first in 2021, like right after the pandemic started. My boyfriend, he does like dry January every year.
Hmm.
And when we first got together and he did dry January, I was just like, first of all, I was like, why would you even do that? Why would you stop drinking for a whole month? Like, who does that? And so he was doing it, so I wanted to do it too. And it was really hard. And I was like,
Hmm.
this is a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be. Like, I didn't think that not drinking for 30 days was a big deal, but it was like, not physically, but like the mental, like the
Hmm.
habit. Every day I'd get off of work, I would go get a bottle of wine and like make dinner and help my son with his homework and do, like, it was just the habit of doing it. And so not doing it was just like, I didn't know what else to do with myself. And I just white knuckled the whole 30 days. And on the, February 1st, I got a bottle of wine and I drank a bottle of wine, and it just washed over me like all these old emotions that I had. Like I was finally getting rid of like the anxiety and the crappy sleeping and all that stuff. And like and when I thought like 30 days was up, it was like a timer, and I drank a bottle of wine, and it just and we know what's crazy is I didn't even think of drinking like a glass of wine. I was like,
Hmm.
it's 30 days is up and I want to reward myself, quote unquote, and I'm going to drink an entire bottle of wine like an idiot and just make myself feel like crap the next day.
Hmm.
And that's when I was like, this is not okay. But that didn't I just kept going. It was like once I started drinking again, it was like a freight train off and
Hmm.
running.
Did your boyfriend join you in that bottle of wine, or was that more your own personal reward for the 30 days
That
of
was just like my own personal thing. Like for him, he's a quote unquote normie. Like he can drink or not drink. Like he's really into whiskey, but he likes
Mhm.
like the taste of whiskey. Like he likes the process of how it's made. Like he's into that kind of thing. So
Mhm.
he has like a bunch of alcohol at his house that he just has like on display. And for me, that is like, there is no way that I could ever do that. If I had all those bottles of alcohol, I would just drink them just because they're there, just because I don't have the control to stop drinking once I start drinking.
Mhm.
And I don't mean like even in the day. I mean like days after. If I have one drink today, then I want to have one drink tomorrow, and I want to have one drink the next day, and then I want to have two drinks the day after that, and then it just slowly built its way back up. After that
Mhm.
30-day break, it was just like it slowly built its way back up. And then after a while, like even after 2021, in 2022, I was like, I'm not going to drink wine anymore because there's so many calories in it, and I'm going to switch to vodka, which is like a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I was like, I want to be able to not drink as much but still get drunk. But you know what I mean? Like save,
Mhm.
quote unquote, save money. And so I thought like this was me getting it under control. And then you put all these parameters on yourself, like I'm not going to drink during the week, or I'm only going to drink on the weekend. And then the weekend starts on Thursday, and then the weekend starts on Wednesday, and then before you know it, you're drinking on Tuesday night, when it's like you're not even doing anything. Like I would just be in my house with my son. Like there's
Mhm.
no need for me to be taking shots of vodka right now. But like that's just what I was doing. It was just a
Yeah.
habit.
What were you saying to yourself in those moments when you're, shooting shots of vodka in the middle of the week with your son being there?
I knew that it wasn't right. But like but I also knew like this was my way to relax. Like this was, I am a mom. I've done my job, quote unquote, for the day. You know, I've made dinner. My son's here. He's okay. He's safe. Like this is me rewarding myself. But it wasn't ever. It never just stopped at one reward. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't. And then that's not rewarding myself. And I know that now. But like I thought that's what I was doing. And so it was always that like battle in my head of like, you know, that this isn't what you should be doing. But then, and I was also like, well, then how else am I going to reward myself at the end of the day? So I just had to like figure that out.
Could I ask a question that's kind of like unrelated and maybe a step back in the conversation? Where, if any, did you, outside of mommy wine culture, did you see as an example that alcohol could be used as that wind down or that turn up? Like what was it in your past? I know you didn't start drinking until later on in your life, but had you been exposed to it from that perspective at a younger age?
I work, and I still work now in restaurant culture.
Okay.
So restaurant culture is just nothing but drinking. Everybody's drinking. After work, everybody's drinking. We worked the closing shift. So we would like literally get out of work and try to race down to the bar to get there before last call, or get to the supermarket to get a bottle of wine before they cut off alcohol sales. And just total everything you do in a restaurant is just wine culture. So I was fully immersed in that. And like even my family, whenever we get together, it's just everybody's drinking. You know, it's no one's ever just relaxing. If we're getting together, everyone's like, well, what are we going to drink? You know what I mean? And even now, like when I don't drink with my family, everyone kind of looks at me like, what do you mean you're not drinking? Or why aren't you drinking? Or when I go out with friends and everyone's drinking at the bar, because I don't go out to the bar as much, but even when I, like around now, it's Halloween time, so everybody's going out. I don't drink, and everyone's always will still offer me a drink, or they'll always ask like, or they'll not necessarily ask why I'm not drinking, but if I'm going to drink, are you drinking? What are you drinking tonight? And I'm always like, just water, or, you know, usually kombucha.
Kombucha. I love a good kombucha. So fast forward back into the timeline. So, you know, you're drinking on a daily basis. You're starting to recognize, at least, you know, deep down, that it's not ideal, right? You know, you're not living the life that you want to. What were some of the pivotal moments, you know, in your, you know, kind of early, you know, journey or kind of later stage of drinking that you turned to and said, okay, this is a clear sign I got to stop, you know, because there's no alternative here for me, because things are only going to get worse from here on out?
Oh, I had two of those moments. My first moment was, funnily enough, the day I graduated from college. And this was when I was 32. So this is not like an 18. I got my bachelor's degree in 2021. And I wanted to celebrate. And I got so drunk that like the next day when I was supposed to actually go out and celebrate with my friends, I couldn't even get out of bed. And I like woke up with this huge scrape on my leg, and I just don't even remember the night. It was just a terrible night. I felt so sick for like days after that. I felt so terrible. And I felt terrible because I did not feel good. I did not remember even coming home, and I drove, which is awful. And like, even though I live in a pretty small town, where like just for me to get from my house to where we were drinking at is just one street. You know, there's not even any turns or anything, but that doesn't make it okay. Like you shouldn't be driving like that. And just, I felt like you just feel so shame when you wake up not remembering the night. And so, and again, I'm from a small town. So like, when I go out to the grocery store, there are going to be people that I seen or that seen me at the bar making a fool of myself, and or maybe I mean I don't know, I don't even remember. So that's just the worst anxiety of not being able to remember anything.
I mean, that totally makes it. I mean, I live in a smaller town right now, and I could gather where you're coming from on, you know, you got to be out and about, and you know, you never know who's watching, and you know,
right.
It makes a lot of sense. What was the second incident that kind of shone a mirror on the situation, or a light rather?
My second situation was when I gave up, when I stopped drinking for this time around, was New Year's Day 2023. When I woke up, I felt so terrible. Like physically, I felt awful. And I just felt like I could not keep doing this to my body. Like I could not keep waking up and feeling like this and not being able to do anything and just wasting the whole day because I can't even move, and not being able to take care of my son, which thankfully he was with his dad at the time, so I didn't have to worry about that. But like just not being able to take care of my dog. Like I have a herding dog and we live in an apartment, so she has to go outside, and it's not fair to her to leave her trapped in the house because I don't want to go outside. And then just she's my emotional support dog, so she can tell when like I don't feel good, and then she doesn't feel good when I don't feel good. So I just don't want to put that on her. And I just felt like I could not keep this. I don't know. My mind was just so messed up. I was just not confident in myself, not confident in what I was doing. I was ashamed of the things that I was doing. Like I just was not being the mother that I could be, the mother that I should be. I was just really giving my son like a real mediocre life and I knew that I could do better. I'm not rich, but I can give him a pretty good life. I work 2 jobs. Like I can give him a good life. And I was not doing that. And I just was not doing the things that I should be doing. And that's not to say like as a mother you should be doing, so much and that I'm better than other mothers, but like when you know better, you do better. And I know better, and I was not doing better at all. I was really, excuse my language, but I was doing everything like half-ass. I was half-assing life. I was doing things to just barely get by, to just keep the wheels on. And that's not a way you want to live life. Like you want to flourish in life, and I was not flourishing at all.
What about these two experiences differed for you though than maybe the handful of other experiences where you woke up with a debilitating hangover? Because I've also been there where it's like, you kind of have these like multiple like rock bottoms, so to speak, before you get to a place where you're like, okay, I need to make a change. Like, what was it about these experiences for you that differentiated them? Oh, what's up, little man?
Say hi.
That differentiated them from the other experiences that you had come into contact with? Or did it just get to a point where it was just so undeniable that that you had to like listen to the reality of it all? I'm just curious.
Well, that first time, what really woke me up was because that night I was really trying, because we were supposed to go out on Saturday night, like to really celebrate. So Friday night was just like kind of like supposed to be a precursor, and I was like, I'm just gonna go out and have a couple of drinks, then I'm gonna come home. And that like legitimately was my plan, and that did not happen at all. And that's when I was like, every time I try to do this, it doesn't work. Like it's repetitive. I kept trying to moderate, and the moderation just was not coming through, no matter how many times I tried. And then that last time, I had been talking about at the end of 2021, or 2022, I was talking about giving up alcohol for 100 days, because me giving up alcohol for this long was supposed to just be a 100-day challenge. It was supposed to be me giving up 100 for 100 days and like trying like a reset, quote unquote. Like I wanted to reset myself. And so I was talking about that at the end of 2021 or 2022. And I was like, in 2023, I'm going to go without. But then when I woke up on January 1st, I was like, this is not something that I can keep doing. And then it slowly, like, I remember that hangover. Like people say you forget the hangovers. I remember that like it was yesterday. And I do not ever want to feel like that ever again. I never want to be in that mental space ever again. I feel like that person is a whole different person. Like it feels like night and day from where I was, and I never want to go back there ever again. I was in such a dark, not like where I wanted to harm myself or harm anybody else, but like I grew up with my grandfather, and he just was always instilled in me to just be confident, to work for yourself, to be hard, and I always had that confidence. And it was gone. It was just not there anymore. And I knew what I wanted to do, and I just couldn't do it. I tried. I was really trying to do those things that I wanted to do. I was trying to lose the weight. I tried to get into grad school, and I got denied. And you know what's so crazy is when I look at the application that I used to fill out when I was drinking, it is a terrible application. But in my drunk brain, I thought, like, this is good enough, because that's what all I was wanted. It was good enough. And to get into grad school, you have to be good. You have to be better than good enough. They're not taking people who are just good enough. Yeah. And, I stopped drinking, and I got into grad school, and I'm in grad school now. And it's just like, if I wanted to do the things that I wanted to do, I could not keep drinking. It was just like, it wasn't working out. It just wasn't happening. And I had tried everything else. You know what I mean? Like, I had tried all the diets in the world. I had tried all the reading to try to get myself ready for the application, and nothing worked. I just was like, I just have to stop drinking. It just has to stop.
Let me ask you, because you talked about your grandfather and this confidence that he had instilled in you, and then at some point it was gone. Do you attribute that to the alcohol, or was the alcohol more so a symptom of something else that was already happening in your life, and the alcohol just certainly didn't help? Because they talk a lot about, in this, conversation of recovery, that the alcohol is a symptom, right, to some to other things potentially that are underlying issues, underlying matters that one needs to address in their own life. I certainly have done that on my own, and I agree with you. Like, once you're able to remove the alcohol, it provides you with a degree of clarity to start pursuing a lot of these spaces that have gone undiagnosed, unresolved. Like, what was that the case for you, or was alcohol really the culprit, that you just, you needed to silver bullet that thing and then everything else opened up? Or was it more a matter of, things were kind of touch and go, but alcohol certainly didn't help and almost exacerbated, kind of me being moving in the wrong direction?
It was definitely that. Not to put too much of my business out there, but when I moved to Washington, my son's father left. We broke up. And so I live in Washington State. We moved here from Florida. So I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any friends. So alcohol was my friend. It was who kept me company. You know what I mean? And then once I got friends, while working in the restaurant industry, I'm an introverted person. So alcohol helped me loosen up, and alcohol was the way that we all connected and how we all, got together. And alcohol was like my freedom. Like, when my son goes with his father on the weekend, that was my time to be free. That's what I thought freedom was. I thought freedom was being able to drink as much as I wanted to, and be as, do whatever I wanted. And that's what I thought I wanted to do, was to get drunk. But that's not what freedom was at all. That was me being an idiot.
So you wake up, you say, I'm not going to be able to survive 100 days. I have to commit more than that. What did that look like for you? Because that seems like it's a paradigm shift almost in the moment, where on the one hand, you're talking about taking a reprieve, right? Whereas on the other hand, you're talking about abstaining indefinitely, maybe the rest of your life, if that's what you believe you want to continue to do. Like, how did you start pursuing that? What are some of the tools that you turn to in order to fortify, your early self in sobriety, and some of the things that you turn to even to this day to stay on your path?
I use a lot of social media. Social media has been like my AA. Like, if I need a confidence boost, or if I need guidance or hope or anything like that, I go to social media. And whether that be like on Facebook, I'm part of the Sober Cafe Facebook group, and it's just everyone in there trying to be sober. And it's people from every different step of sobriety. People from day one, people who have been sober for 30 days, people who have been sober for 30 years, people who have been sober for years and then have gone back and have come back to sobriety. Just people of all different walks of life. It has been really good to be able to just have that kind of my tribe. Like, I found my tribe where I can go there and like flush out whatever it is that I'm feeling, and someone's gonna be able to talk to me about it and understand where I'm coming from. I use a lot of like Instagram, any of the memes, just hashtag sober, whatever. If you're just looking for just any kind of confidence, any type of advice, just really being on social media, there is a group of sober people out there that are willing and ready to rally behind you. And you don't have to know these people. I don't know any of these people in the Sober Cafe. I maybe know 2 people that I have brought there personally, because I know that these are the things that have helped me. And so if anytime I'm feeling like upset, or if I've got a victory and people are really willing to rally behind me, and it can be something so small, and that's something that I really love about that group, is we uplift each other on even the smallest things, like being on your day one, or like going to a restaurant and being able to get through a restaurant without ordering a drink. Like, that's a celebration for all of us. It's really people who are there to really help each other. And I love that. And I try to, some of the best advice I got when I first got sober was to do things that you enjoyed doing when you were a kid, like before you started drinking. And so I took that and I ran with it. And so when I first got sober, I did so many puzzles upon puzzles upon puzzles. And it keeps your mind busy. You can sit and do a puzzle for hours, because a lot of us have like a witching hour. After work was my witching hour. So after work, I would make my son dinner, and then I would sit and do a puzzle. And before you know it, it's like 9:00 and time to go to bed. So you just kind of keep doing things like that. Draw. I walked my dog so much. I've taken her on so many walks just around our neighborhood. And then after I was like, I'm tired of walking around our neighborhood, I downloaded the All Trails app, and we've walked to so many trails. And Washington State is a great place for outdoor hiking. So there's a million places to hike. We've hiked at Mount Rainier. We've hiked at Rattlesnake Ledge. We've hiked so many different parks, and once you find something, you just keep finding things that you like to do and try everything. I'm like, try it all. There's no way. I'm in ballet. I've never taken ballet a day in my life.
Oh, that's awesome.
But they were offering ballet at the dance studio in town, and I was like, I'm going to take ballet. Why not? And I love it. It's so much fun. And there are women there from all different classes who have never taken ballet either. And you just keep trying different stuff. And that's the way I am now. I keep trying. I want to try as much stuff as I can.
I love that. You're just kind of putting yourself out there and experiencing, a certain degree of novelty and newness.
Yes.
And it sounds like a lot of your experiences. I want to touch on a few points, like kind of like larger buckets here. One is, do you ever find yourself in kind of moments where your sobriety is being challenged? Like, I've also worked in hospitality, in restaurants, in bars, in my past, my history, and I know how challenging those environments can be. I can only imagine how challenging they are when you're trying to navigate them soberly. Like, how do you do that? And do you find yourself constantly coming up against, scenarios where your sobriety is being challenged, or is it kind of just all out there and your colleagues are just supportive and protect your sobriety just as much as you do?
I think one odd thing about myself, I don't know if this applies to everybody, but not very many people ask me why I don't drink. And I think that was like, when I was first started getting into sobriety, that was like a big thing that people always said. Like, people always ask me why I stopped drinking or why I'm not drinking. And I've thankfully been around my coworkers. Nobody ever, I talk about I don't drink at work. So nobody ever tries to get me to drink, or nobody ever asks me why I drink. So I don't really have I've never really been in a situation where someone's like, why aren't you going to drink? I really kind of, I protect myself from people like that, I guess. So that maybe that's why it hasn't happened to me. Because if I
Mm-hmm.
feel like there's a particular person in my life that I feel like is that type of person, and so I just don't hang out with that person anymore. I just protect myself from people in situations like that. And if I'm in a situation like that, like when I went to a couple last month, we went to go see Beyonce, and everybody was drinking. Of course, it's a concert, and you want to have as much fun as possible because you're going to see Beyonce. And I had that slight feeling of like I could just have one drink. Like I'm in Canada. I'm going to see Beyonce. Like why I could just have one drink. But I didn't. And once the show came on and Beyonce came out on stage, I wasn't even thinking about alcohol. I
Mm-hmm.
had such a good time at the show, and after the show, I was so happy that I didn't drink because the show was like 2.5 hours long, and I was already getting sleepy at the end, even though like we were there. So I didn't even need. And I remember the whole concert, and I had so much fun. And I was able to get a lot of it on video and take a lot of pictures, and just I remember the whole thing. And so I always try to use that playing the tape forward tool.
Yeah.
I always try to use that. I always tell myself, like, if it's not going to stop at this one drink, and this drink isn't going to, you're going to feel good for maybe about 20 minutes, and then you're going to feel like crap. And then you're going to feel like crap tomorrow, and then you're mentally going to feel like crap. And it's just going to undo all the things that I have worked so hard in these last 10 months to build up. And I don't want something so stupid as alcohol to take that away from me.
Yeah. I don't think Beyonce would have wanted that either.
No. Mm-mm.
Probably not. Um, 297 days in at this point today, right? So congratulations to you. I think that that's fantastic. I wanted to talk to you about, about motherhood, frankly, and, what it has meant to you and to your son to now continue to pursue your life of sobriety. Like, how has it allowed you to show up in a way that you were not showing up 270, 98 days ago, for example? What does that look like for you?
I'm just able to like do more for him. I just took my son to Las Vegas for his birthday.
Hmm.
And that was something that like I would not have been able to do. I wouldn't the mental capacity, I would not have been able to just the planning, everything that it took to go into planning the whole thing, and the traveling and the saving the money and all the stuff that we did, so much stuff while we were there. And just I would not have been able to do that. I wouldn't have been able. I'm able to just be there for him and actually do stuff, and like and come through with my word. And like when I say I'm going to do something, we actually do that. And my son has said that to me before, like, you always say we're going to do stuff and we don't. And that
Hmm.
breaks my heart. Like, because my mother would always say that we were going to do stuff, and then she wouldn't come around. And I don't
Hmm.
ever want I want my son to be able to depend on me no matter what. And I feel like he can now, and he does now. Like, he's always able to call me no matter what. I want him to always be able to depend on me. And he can now. You know what I mean? Like, if it's a friend's birthday and I've got the money for a birthday gift or whatever the case may be, or if it's school pictures or whatever's going on at school, there's always they need $20 for something all the time at school. And so I've always got the money for that. Like, I'm always able to just come through. And I know that, like, kids, they don't need a lot of stuff, but they want a lot of stuff. And like, that's just part of being a kid. And I don't want him to have to go without just because I want to drink. Like, that's not a reason for him to not have a new pair of shoes or not be able to go to a friend's birthday party or have a new bike or something. Like that's not an excuse for him to not have those memories because I want to drink.
Yeah. I think also, I mean, it, yes, all of those things are important. I feel the same way when I think about, my kids, but also just at like a fundamental, like basic level, like your kids just want you to be
To
present,
be
right?
there, right.
They want you to be there, and I think that that's something that is even in some of the most like new, like seemingly like seemingly like easily passing moments that I experience with my kids that are so small, but
Right.
I recognize it in the moment that I'm there, and then I get this like warm feeling in my chest. Is I wouldn't trade that for the world, and it sounds like you're getting a lot of that with your son too, because you said he's 9, right?
Yeah.
So he's not a baby necessarily
Right.
anymore, and he can experience life as his own like actualized little person. So yeah, that
And I
makes
know that
sense.
like those times of him like wanting to be around his mom and stuff are gonna be gone. I always say like one day he's gonna go into his room and he's not gonna come out. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And that's just what kids do. And you can't I want to be able to I want to soak up all the time that I can while he still wants to be a mommy's boy. You know what I mean? I want him to sleep with me for as long as he can, because I know one day he's going to want to sleep in his own bed, and one day he's going to want to hang around with his own friends. So I just want to I want to soak up as much of that as possible, because he's my only child and I'm not having any more kids. So this is just, I want to get as much out of it as I can. And now we're able to do like so many things. Like we watched The Haunted Mansion together the other day, and just laughing at things like when my dog's acting crazy and she's got the zoomies, and we're all just laughing, like just core memories like that. And we go camping. I know as people of color, there's almost nobody, and when we go camping, we are usually the only Black people there. And I glamp, like I bring my whole house, pack it up in my car, and bring it all with me to the campsite, and just making s'mores and all the core memories. And I want to be able to do all that stuff and not like have one night of us camping, of having a good time, and then I get drunk, and then the next day I don't want to do anything or go to the beach or you go anywhere because I'm hungover, and that's not fair.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I was just making some s'mores this past weekend, so I know exactly what you're talking about. When you're out there, you are like the only one out there,
Right.
of color making s'mores. But those are core memories. You know what I mean? Your child will never forget that,
Right.
and I think that that's such a special gift that you're giving to him and to yourself.
Yeah, and we've just been able to see like so many places. That I'm from, again, from a small town, so like we didn't really go very many places, and so I've just been able to take my son to see so many things that I didn't get to see when I was a kid. When we camped, we went to Cape Disappointment, which is the place where Lewis and Clark found the West, and they have like a whole Lewis and Clark interpretation center, and just it's a beautiful place. It's so pretty, and there's so many lighthouses, and just being able to see. I'm a history nerd, so I'm just like, I try to put history into everything that we do. And so just being able to see that, and he probably doesn't understand it, but just being able to know that he was there and experience it was just, it's things that I know that he'll remember. And I always take pictures when we go, and I always get them printed out. And so like in my living room is like a shrine of all the places that we have been. And I just want him to be able to remember those, and I want to keep adding to that.
I love that. I'm sure that he will look back on these days and have a lot of fine memories. Sounds like that you're creating for him, which is a great place to be in, considering where you come from. I have a question, and I know that you have your own podcast, right? Which is, and I actually listened to a little bit of it before we came on. So what are you reading podcast is the name of it. And I'm curious, first of all, tell the audience a little bit about what the podcast is. And then I have a question specific to the podcast and sobriety.
The So What Are You Reading podcast is a book recommendation podcast that I host with my best friend Alicia. We talk about history related topics, any kind of book related topic, and then we also interview other book readers. It's really turned into interviewing a lot of indie book authors, which is really cool, and then just talking to just book lovers in general. Of what are you reading? Where do you get your books? Where'd you get your love of reading? Just having a conversation about books in general. It really started with me and my best friend. We always talk about books what we're reading. And if you ever listen to our podcast, we talk about books as if they are real life happenings. So we're always just like, and then he did this, and can you believe that happened? And so it just always it turned into, I was like, we should make a podcast out of this. And my boyfriend, he records music. He's a music producer, like as a side profession. And so he knew like all the stuff to get, and I was like, we're just gonna do it, and we just put it together, and it's been so much fun.
How long have you been doing it now?
A little bit over a year.
Cool. Congratulations. I mean,
thank you.
Creating and putting something out there into the world is, it's not a simple feat. So, I appreciate you for putting your foot out there and stepping into that space. It's pretty cool. I was going to ask you, being that you are critiquing, sounds like you're a voracious reader, was Quit Lit part of like your early recovery? Did you read a lot of books in the vein of sobriety, or is that not where you kind of get motivated when it comes to reading?
No, I didn't really read any Quit Lit. I have 2 Quit Lit books on my TBR list that I do want to read. The Unexpected Joys of Being Sober. I do want to read that, and I want to read This Naked Mind, because everybody always recommends that book. And so I listened to her podcast, or I've listened to a couple of them, and I've watched a couple of her videos on YouTube, and she is very informative. And the way that people react to her book is always really funny. You're like, can you believe that alcohol does this to people? I did not know. And then she like really breaks it down. But I didn't really read any Quit Lit.
Yeah. That is actually a really good one. I read that as part of my early sobriety days. Just curious though, because I feel like that is so much of like an emerging genre when it comes to like, literature specifically. At some point in the coming months, I want to start having more authors on this show of color who have kind of written their either own memoirs or their own kind of literature around this space and what it means for folks of color. So let's make sure that we stay connected down the line. There might be some crossover there between
for sure.
your world and my world. I think it's just an interesting space. Speaking of the joys of sobriety, what were some of the unexpected upsides to sobriety that you've experienced that maybe you didn't even think about when you were first looking at this as maybe just being 100-day, kind of hiatus, and then it turned into something much more?
I think my biggest unexpected takeaway was just how much easier life got. Like life in general, like just everything in general got so much easier. I was just living life on hard mode. Everything was so much harder. I was making everything so much harder for myself. Even when I was getting my bachelor's degree, I would always, come home and have a bottle of wine and say, I'm going to stay up and do my homework. And of course, I didn't ever stay up to do my homework. And I would have to end up waking up at 5 a.m. to try to get my homework done before class. And now in grad school, I get my homework done. I'm responding back in discussions. I'm reading everything that I need to read beforehand. My mind is just, I can't believe how much clearer my mind is. Like I'm able to like see a task and get it done. And my anxiety doesn't hold me back. My anxiety when I was drinking was so debilitating. It was just like when I was getting my bachelor's degree, I couldn't even open my computer because I couldn't. The thought of having to sit down and write a paper and find the sources and do just all the work of thinking of having to do that was terrifying to me. And I knew that if I really sat down and did it, I can do it. But like my brain when I was drinking, just the thought of having to do that, I just couldn't even think about it. And now I just wrote a 5-page paper the other day, 6 sources, bibliography, like did it in the night before, came back to it, edited it. And like, it wasn't easy, but it wasn't hard. Like I was just able to just look at a task and get it done. And that's been so much. Life isn't as fearful as I thought it was before. I was always like waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was always waiting for like doom and gloom. I always saw like something terrible. It's this like things have been going really well for a long time, something terrible is bound to happen. Like that was always my mentality. And now I just don't feel like that anymore. And I feel, and I just, you know what's been really surprising? My ability to like cut things off. I was so emotionally like, I would feel bad for doing things like cutting people off or stopping doing. Now I'm just like, if I don't want to do it, I just don't do it anymore. If I don't want to deal with somebody, I just don't deal with them anymore. I don't let things drive me crazy. I don't internalize things as much as I used to. I just roll with the punches and I just don't let things get to me. I really try to just keep moving. If I, and not like I'm a robot where I don't care about, I'm not like an emotionless person, but I just do not let things, it's something I try to tell my son, like you live in your moment for a minute and then you move on. Like you can't just dwell in the past. And I was a big dweller. I was always dwelling on like what I could have done, what I should have done, what I don't even remember doing. And just like, I just don't do that anymore. I like, this happened, it sucks, I move on. I just don't let things get to me like that anymore.
I love that. I mean, there's something about and you just stumbled upon on this, right? It's not like you were actively pursuing this mentality.
No, not
in
at
your
all.
sobriety.
Yeah. When I stopped drinking, my main focus to stop drinking was number one, to lose weight, which is so vain. But I wanted to lose weight because I was working out and I wasn't losing weight, and that was driving me crazy. But like my second focus was just like to stop. My life was like a roller coaster. Like it was always up and down. Something was always happening. It was always so chaotic. And I just wanted that to stop. I was like, I just want to live a regular, quiet, boring life. And like, that's what I live now. And I love it. I love my quiet life now. I love just like waking up, and not that it's boring because I'm always doing something different. You know, I'm when the weekend comes, like I'm going on a different hike, or when it's warm outside, I do a lot of paddle boarding, or when, you know, I take my dog for different walks, or we just went to this event called the Night Circus, which was a circus that everybody got together over this book. And like, this is things, and that just going to that cost $100. And that's something that I wouldn't have even been able to afford to go to. And I had so much fun there. I had such a good time, and I didn't drink, and everybody else was drinking. And that's been another good thing. Like, I love being a sober person in a sea of drunk people. Just watching everybody and just being like, I can't believe I used to do that to myself. And just, that's something that's been so reassuring to me. Like when I see people like that, I'm like, I'm so happy I'm not you. And I'm not to say that like to knock anybody who drinks, because if you drink and you can handle it, or if you drink and you can't handle it, that's your life. And that's something I always tell people, like my not drinking is my thing. It has nothing to do with anybody else. I can still hang out with people that drink. I just don't drink. It's just, I just don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, seeing people drink is one thing. Knowing how they feel the next day is also another thing, right? To know that like I don't have to like worry about what you're going to feel like tomorrow. Makes me feel pretty good about the decisions that I'm making for myself. I got two more questions for you as we kind of round this conversation out. One is, and I'm curious what your response is going to be to this, because it sounds like you are kind of out on your own, and for the most part, in Washington State, when you were coming upon your real problematic drinking days. But the one question that I have is, when you were really, really struggling, how would someone have around you have known that you were struggling if you didn't tell them explicitly?
I think nobody would have known. Nobody would have. I kept it until, I don't think it would have gotten, nobody would have known until it was like bad enough to where like the law was probably involved. Because I don't really talk to anybody. My son's father lives like 45 minutes away, so he's not over here. So until something happened to where like it's where the law got involved was where it would have been. And I didn't want it to get that way. I didn't want to like crash my car and then even when you crash your car, when it's your first DUI, like you can figure a way out of it. You know what I mean? And you can make it so that you can be like, well, I'll just get another car and kind of move on from that. But like, someone's going to ask why you crashed your car. No, you know what I mean? Like the government's going to know, but like in my circle of family and friends, they're going to want to know like why I don't have a car anymore. And, you know, like, why does Robert need a ride here? Didn't you have a car? Or, you know what I mean? Like I'm going to have to explain that to someone. And people are going to, even if you lie, people are going to figure it out. And so I just had to I had to stop before it got to where the law was going to get involved.
No, I hear you on that. And I guess that makes, actually, I'll add one additional question into this round out. Now that, so, you know, you obviously, you know, we're kind of on a solo mission, you know, so to speak, in pursuing your sobriety. Now that you are sober, and for the folks that, you know, who are maybe relatively close to you, are they surprised now that you are sober, that you felt as though that you had an issue large enough for yourself that you needed to pursue sobriety?
Yeah.
Is that something that they're kind of like taken aback by?
I mean, everybody was genuinely surprised when I told them that I wasn't going to drink anymore, because they were like, I mean, why? I just graduated from college in 2021. Like, people are like, why would you just graduated from college? Like, why would you stop drinking? It doesn't seem like you have a problem. Like, I work 2 jobs. I work 7 days a week for like 8 months out of the year. And people are always like, I mean, how do you, if you have a drinking problem, like, how do you work every single day? And and it's like, I just force myself to do it. And, you know, this season going through, this last summer working through, and when I wasn't drinking, the easiest season ever. Like, I didn't even have to write things down, orders. I could remember everything. I remembered when people asked me for things instead of them having to ask me 10 times for a cup of ranch. I could just remember when they asked me for something. I remember to bring them stuff. I was able to cover for shifts, and like, but you know, I would work 7 days a week. And before you know it, it would be like I had worked 45 days in a row, and I wouldn't even notice it. And not to say like I wouldn't recommend other people doing that, but like when I was drinking, that would put such a toll on my body. Like by the end, by maybe 3 weeks in, I would be like, I need to sleep for an entire day or I'm going to pass out. But now it's just like, it doesn't even bother me anymore. I have so much more energy, because I just am not beating myself. My body's not working overtime to try to heal up all the damage I'm doing to it all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it is pretty remarkable how abusive, you know, that substance is on the body. I mean, just from the inside out.
Yeah.
Just it's corrosive. Last question I have for you is, so for someone who's sitting there, you know, maybe listening to this, maybe just, you know, listening to another podcast, or at a point in their life where they're starting to evaluate their own relationship with alcohol and saying to themselves, I need to do something differently this time around, but I don't necessarily know what to do. What would you suggest to that person?
I would suggest trying every single option that you have. If AA doesn't work, try something else. If that doesn't work, try something else. Just keep trying. Don't give up. There is a way to get sober. You just have to figure out your way. And everybody's way is different. You know, some people are like, I can't do it alone, but I did it alone. And some people are like, I have to be in AA, or I have to do this. You just keep trying. Don't give up. You just have to keep and try every minute. Don't look at, I feel like a lot of people, when they stop drinking, they think of like forever. And you just can't think about forever. You have to just think about today. Think about what's in front of you right now. And that helps me a lot as well. I don't think about not drinking forever, because you're not going to be alive forever. You might not be alive 10 years from now. So you're thinking about something that might not even happen. You just have to think about right now. And think about, like, do you want to be able to remember and look back at a life that you could be proud of? And I want to be
Yeah.
able to remember my life and remember the things that I do. And you just have to keep trying. Even if I'm in the sober cafe, there's people who are like, I'll get a week and I start drinking. I just can't. And you just have to keep trying. You will get it. You will start to stack your days. Your days will start to stack up. You just have to keep trying. And don't look so much at the number. I think a lot of people focus on the number, but if you get 10 days and drink and then one day, you do drink, that one day doesn't cancel out the 10 days that you've been sober. So you just keep trying. That's my best advice to anybody. Don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. The world is going to give up on you. You cannot give up on yourself. I always say that to my son. You can't give up on yourself. There is nobody is going to do for you. My grandfather used to say this to me. Nobody is going to do for you the way you do for yourself. So it doesn't matter if you have a support system or not. You have to want it and you have to do it. And you just cannot give up on yourself.
I love that. Don't give up on yourself. And, sometimes that's, it's easier said sometimes than done, surely. But I feel as though there are enough examples out there that you can look to say they didn't give up on themselves and look where they are today. I'm not going to give up on myself and I'm going to find my way. I think that's extremely powerful. Stephanie, thank you so much for spending some time today to sit down and chat with me about your journey. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on. I apologize for all the chaos in my background.
It's all good. We live in a chaotic world. You know what I mean? We're just trying to make sense of it all half the time. But let's stay in contact. I'll certainly shoot you. Oh, before we leave, could you just let people know where they can find you? I want to make sure that if we got some bookies in our audience here that they can find your podcast.
Oh yeah, we are at the So What Are You Reading podcast on Instagram. We are at the So What Are You Reading podcast on Facebook. You can find the So What Are You Reading podcast on all platforms: Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, all the good stuff. And if you want to be a guest on the show, if you go to our Instagram, there is our link tree in there. It'll bring you to the questionnaire, and you could be a guest on the show. And anybody is welcome to be a guest. If you've read one book, you're a book reader, and we are welcome to be a guest on the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate you guys listening to the Stacking Days podcast. I hope this episode added value to your recovery and wellness journey. Before we go our separate ways, let's connect on social. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Stacking Days or via the website www.stackingdays.com. By supporting the show, you can play a direct role in amplifying people of color in their pursuit of recovery. The easiest way to do that is to subscribe or hit the follow button. This way, you'll never miss an episode, all while playing an active part in creating the ecosystem where diverse voices in healing matter. This show is for the purpose of education and connection and is not a replacement for therapy or recovery care. For more information on the resources and support available, take a look at SAMHSA and some other resources shared in the description. Until we meet again, be well, one day at a time.